The episode opens with, the Kimberly Magic Academy is a school where only 20% of the students manage to graduate. Oliver is one of the new students making his way to the entrance ceremony, but on his way something strange happens. Flower was following and talking to him. The flower mentioned that he looked nervous to join the school. The flower advised him to relax for the day, because he will find true pain until he graduates, if he manages. Oliver thanks it for the advice and the flower left. He considered the flower's words and considers that it was something they always do to scare new students, but he still couldn't be sure as he doesn't really know what to expect in the future. He then notices a girl named Katie, worried by the flower's words. A guy named Guy, he appears and tells Katie you need to not mind the flower's words. He reveals that flowers' personalities get affected when they absorb magic particles from the ground, and that most of them have a nasty personality. Katie replies that she doesn't know about plants because she's more into magical animals. Guy gets curious and asks which animal is her favorite. At this point, he's just hitting on her. She replies, she loves every animal. Maybe she also loves him. Then Oliver hears Michaela interrupting Pete the bookworm. This girl tells the guy to be careful because he almost stepped on a plant and then proceeds to insult the plant, forcing it to retreat. Pete turns out and tells he doesn't need her help, and then he'll be addressed and a hibia appears. The plant tries to pick on her, but she ignores it. But everyone around, including Oliver, is surprised to see a samurai here. Somehow he starts getting a vision of crossing blades with her and thinks that he felt something in his heart. He guesses that it must be faint, especially when she turns away and smiles at him. Nobody could believe what was happening after entering the school gate. There was a magical monster parade. There were griffins, salamanders, and even a bloody dragon. Oliver found it mesmerizing while Guy was left stunned by the sight. Oliver told him that it was a fap near impressing him with his knowledge, but Katie wasn't happy. There was a troll walking in the parade and she feels like it was wrong. Guy is confused because trolls don't speak their language and sometimes attack people, but Katie gets mad. She yells that trolls are kind creatures and only attack because humans invade their territories. They start throwing at each other. At this point, just get a room. Guy tells that trolls invade his country and mess up the fields. Katie goes back at him, but Pete tells them to shut up because he needs to read. The two apologize and all have takes advantage to talk to them. Telling them that they could discuss their point of view later, they agree, and when they're about to introduce themselves, something strange happens. A random-footed girl decides to cast a spell on Katie, restraining her legs and making her run toward the parade, all living. Guy tells her to stop running, but she reveals that she can't. They realize it's a spell and follow up to help her. Michaela checks the situation with Pete and realizes that the troll is also moving toward Katie. The troll suddenly went into a frenzy, attacking those nearby. Katie's legs finally stopped and she fell. The troll noticed her and approached her, preparing his arm to punch her. However, Hibia appeared behind Katie and shouted at the troll, scaring it. Hibia instructed Katie to stand behind her since her legs were still numb and took out her sword. Meanwhile, the others rushed towards them, attempting to distract the trolls as Hibia alone wouldn't stand a chance. Michaela launched the spell of the trolls to divert its attention, but it remained unfazed. They weren't strong enough yet to deal with it yet. Oliver had an idea. He urged everyone to cast the wind spell together on the same spot. Michaela said that a wind spell won't do anything, but Oliver told them to trust him and do it. Michaela, Pete, and Guy follow his plan and cast their wind spells in the same place. He added his own spell, transforming their spells into a dragon's roar that caught the troll's attention, scaring it. Michaela was astonished by Oliver's spell, and he shouted at Hibia to run away, but she jumped onto the troll and suddenly her hair suddenly turned white. With a swift slash, she defeated the troll. Oliver realized that she used innocent color, which only mages with strong magic can do it. Hibia couldn't even believe she has just done that. Her body was tingling from the clash, but she assured Katie that she would carry her. She thanks the rest for their assistance, which had created an opening. Inside the school, all the students gathered in the hallway, waiting anxiously to the ceremony. They ended up separated, but Oliver ended up by Hibia's side. He finds out that she didn't have a plan when she tries to confront the troll. She laughs it off and explains her katana doesn't even have a cutting edge. He explains that if their spell didn't scare the trolls, she would have died, but thinks she will have luck in life because someone already saved her on the first day. Suddenly they were asked to be silent as the headmistress arrived. She was the famous witch Esmeralda of Kimberly. Esmeralda apologized for the earlier incident and addressed the students. They will be learning here for the next 7 years, and they will have 2 priorities, freedom and results, which means they can die at any moment. She informs them about the low graduate rate due to the strange encounters that students often face at the academy. These encounters could be becoming a cripple going missing or even going mad and killing other students. Basically, she welcomes them to a madhouse. After the address, Hibiya raised her hand to speak, and the headmistress granted her permission. Turns out this girl is recommending a method to relieve the headmistress's headache. The massaging pressure points the headmistress ignored her suggestion and instructed the students to proceed to the welcoming banquet. With a flick of her hands, the students floated up and found themselves seated in chairs in front of a grand banquet table filled with delicious food. Oliver reunited with the group he had been separated from and expressed his gratitude once again for their earlier help. Michelle suggested that they introduce themselves, but they had to wait for Katie. Suddenly, Katie descended from the ceiling and Hibiya saved her, but the group now complete, they proceeded with introductions. Michaela introduced herself, the eldest daughter of the noble McFarlane family, and told them they could call her Chella, and of course, Guy takes the chance to hit on her. Katie introduced herself as an exchange student from farmland who had a passion for animals. Then it was Guy's turn from a family that had run a magic farm for generations. And Pete's turn. He explains that his parents had no magical lineage and didn't want to make any friends, but he got hyped up when Oliver mentioned that he knows the book Pete's reading. It was Oliver's turn, and he shared his family's long lineage of mages and his expertise in arranging and adapting spell. Chella appraised the impassive dragon spell he casts. Finally, it was Hibiya's turn, and she introduced herself as a member of a warrior's family. She revealed that she was attending the academy because a mage named McFarlane saved her from the brink of death years ago. The name made them all realize that it was Chella's father, who served as a lecturer at the academy. Chella couldn't believe that her father had gone as far as he has to scout for talent. As they settled down to eat the food on their tables, laughter and smiles filled the air. Oliver woke up the next day to the sound of the clock knockers playing their mischievous pranks, messing around with the clock needles. Glancing around the room, he noticed that Pete was still asleep. Oliver headed outside when he was greeted by someone hiding and asking if something was bothering him. He holds onto his sword, replying that he was taking a look around while it's still quiet. He asks for the person's identity, but she replies that his brother sent her to watch over him. Oliver thinks this is too much, but she replies that his brother is worried about him. He asks if she will follow around, and she replies with a yes. He then asks for her name, and she reveals herself to be Teresa. She then tells him that it needs something. He just needs to call for her. Oliver continues his walk, and with the sunrise he finds Hibiya taking a bath in the school fountain. He notices her back filled with scars and the lack of shame on her face, and also ignoring common sense. He takes out his wand and casts the curtain spell around the fountain. He tells that she cannot take a bath there because every guy can see her from the window. She explains that she's purifying herself from the bloodbath of the last war she was in. He asks about her scars, and she apologizes for the unpleasant view. He looks at her once more and remembers a similar scene that happened in his past. He gets back to reality and tells her to hurry up, but since she doesn't have a towel, he gives her his jacket, and realizes that they are connected by faith. That brings the episode to an end. The story continues with their normal day and return to the school building where they meet their new friends. Chella asks how did Oliver and Pete sleep, and they answered that it was okay. Guy comes in running late and asks the group why they didn't tell them about the clocks. Katie doesn't understand it and comments that Nanao woke up early. Nanao explains she wakes up naturally at 6 o'clock in the morning. The group also comments on how Nanao is now wearing the school uniform, and she happily asks if she looks like a mage now, but Oliver cannot erase her bathing image from earlier that morning. Guy mentions that Oliver's robe looks a bit damp, and Oliver tries to dismiss it to avoid explaining what happened early on. Pete reveals more of his book rat mode, telling them to hurry up for breakfast so they can go to class. Nanao also reveals to be excited to find out what a magic class looks like. Their first class is sword arts. Teacher Garland first tries to explain what sword arts are before they can practice. He asks if someone can define the class, and Pete raises his hand. Most of the students start their mocking and bullying process by calling him the teacher's pet. Pete starts his explanation. Sword arts are techniques they use with their swords. He goes into detail explaining that mages started to use swords to complement their wands, all because 400 years ago a famous mages lost the duel against the swordsman. Since then, mages have been carrying swords to deal with close-range attacks because they don't have time to chant a spell. So right now, mages can use swords to fight while also using basic quick spells to distract or confuse the enemy. Garland is happy with the explanation. He then says that it is usual for two students who already know how to fight to perform a duel to demonstrate to their classmate. Nanao volunteers first, and the teacher comments on how famous she already is. One of the bullies steps in to fight her, explaining that he wants to test her since she defeated the troll yesterday. Oliver realizes this guy only wants to show off because she lacks sword arts experience and never used magic before. So he decides to step in, asking to duel Nanao. The bully gets annoyed and tells Oliver to back down, but Oliver tells him to shut up because he helps Nanao fight the troll, so the two already have a connection. Oliver knows this dude was there when the troll attacked, but the best he did was wasting oxygen. The bully tries to pull out a BS logic stating that Oliver should have done nothing to deal with the troll and wait for the teachers or upperclassmen. Oliver basically calls him a coward, and raising the bully, Chella comes forth and decides to help, challenging the bully, telling him that people will be more impressed if he defeats her instead of the inexperienced Nanao. He ends up accepting after being called a scared cat. The teacher makes the decision that the first duel will be between Nanao and Oliver, and the second will be Chella against the bully. The two of them step inside the ring and draw out their swords. The teacher casts a spell on their blades to make them non-lethal and avoid injuries. He explains this is the only way students can fight each other in their school. If they break the rules, they will be punished. He elaborates that they don't have a time limit and the combat will end when they inflict a mortal blow to the head or chest. As they prepare to start, Nanao tells Oliver that they will have an honorable battle. Oliver agrees and thinks that since Nanao doesn't know about magic, he will simply clash swords for a bit and then call it for the day as the teacher signals to start. Nanoa's hair turns white and Oliver realizes that he cannot afford to hold back against her. They continue trading blows until Nano suddenly backs off, confusing Oliver. He sees her crying and saying that it was right here, but he doesn't understand. He feels sad for her and tells her to not cry. He doesn't know why, but deep down he feels that he needs to do everything to stop her from tearing down. And how do you stop a girl from crying? He prepared to attack her again. She thanks him and gets her posture back. Oliver feels that right now they will fight until one of them dies. They dash forward toward each other with the teacher orders them to stop. She scolds them because both ended up breaking the anti-lethality spell and didn't realize it. Oliver doesn't understand what just happened and why was he fighting. The teacher orders them to go rest. The teacher cancels the second duel and decides to continue the lesson. Oliver heads out to rest and Nanao chases after him. She tells it was the first fulfilling duel she had in her whole life, but she regrets they couldn't finish it. She explains she wanted to see what awaits her after that moment and asks what he thinks about it. She asks him to fight her again, but this time without an anti-lethality spell. Oliver reminds seeing her tear down and refuses. He tells her that he doesn't want to fight her again, but she doesn't understand why. He says that he doesn't want to kill her and he doesn't also want to be killed. Nanao starts crying again and watches him walk away while asking why. The group reunites during lunch break, Guy complaining that his brain cannot follow the lessons. Chella mentions this philology class was surprising and Guy complains about their teacher Gilchrist, an old baba who is against mages using swords. She told them that if they call themselves mages then they should solve their problems with magic, not swords. Pete mentions that she had some impressive familiars, but Guy is more worried about their remaining classes. Katie, on the other hand, is pretty hyped up because they will have a magical biology class. But the teacher, Vanessa, is another crazy woman. Turns out she's against any animal-loving person. Despite teaching about magical animals, she tells the students to change their views because magical creatures are only resources and they will learn how to exploit them. The students will have a practical lesson and deal with magical silkworms. Katie thinks they're so cute, but Vanessa continues to explain that this creature will create as many cocoons as they want just by feeding them magic. The teacher explains they will not become adults if they rip the cocoon off first. But that's only if they can feed and control the right amount of magic. If they can't do it, then the cocoon will unleash an evil monster. The teacher kills the monster after demonstrating, and tells the students' task is to create 5 cocoons within 10 tries. If the silkworm becomes a monster, that's the students' problem to solve. They immediately start practicing. Some fail and panic and the teacher simply enjoys the show. Michaela is the first one to complete the task despite failing on her last attempt. She killed the silkworm while the cocoon turned black just before the monster hatched. She then turns to Oliver, who easily got 10 out of 10, and tells him to help Katie or Pete while she helps Nanao. Oliver is startled, but Chella mentions she noticed something happen between him and Nanao after the fight. Oliver helps Pete, who barely succeeds and takes his chance to oversee Katie. The teacher is walking around, impressed that this year's students are better than before. She notices Katie is trying to control her magic and do it slowly, and tells her to hurry up. The teacher walks away, and a few minutes later everyone completed the task except for Katie. Chella approaches Oliver to find out how Katie is doing, and he reveals that she's already on the last one. Chella notices that Katie is being extra careful, despite already having passed the test. Oliver explains that Katie has a different goal from them. She doesn't care about class, she simply wants to keep the creatures alive. She tries her best to be careful, but she gets distracted when some petals fly past her. If he loses control and the cocoon starts turning black, Oliver quickly tells her to burn it, but she refuses to. She tries to save the silkworm by using her hands to rip the cocoon off. However, the evil creature comes out and bites her, just before Oliver and Chella can kill it. The teacher checks the situation and tells that they lost 2 points for helping Katie out. Oliver takes her to the infirmary so she could get bandaged, and she apologizes for making him leave class. Oliver says that he didn't want to be there, so it's okay. She reveals that her family had a bunch of magical creatures, even demi-humans. Katie was close to a troll, and that's why she cannot bear to see an animal or demi-human getting hurt. She explains that in their mage's society everything without human rights is considered just a resource, and that's the case for magical creatures. She wants to change society so that magical creatures also have rights, and reveals that she cannot understand this school's philosophy. Oliver comments that her childhood must have been like an angel growing up in paradise, but now she must accept that the real world is cruel. Despite the comment, he also states that her dream will become noble if she stays the same. Both get flustered, and Oliver tells her to not judge the school based on what she saw on the first day, and she should always remind herself of her friends. Just then, he opens the door and reveals that everyone was listening behind it. After comforting her, Oliver heads back to his dorm. He stops by the fountain, and Teresa, the person who is watching over him, mentions that he had a rough day. She tells him to choose his friends more carefully because someone who can't kill a silkworm will probably die first in this school. Oliver tells her that he will decide and asks if she needs something. She replies that she will be heading to Gwen's workshop and she won't be able to watch over him for some time. He tells her to say hi to his cousin, and she leaves. Everything is back to normal during dinner time, except for Nanao, who's still a bit down. Katie gets worried about it, but Nanao assures her that she's fine. Pete suddenly realizes that he forgot his book in the biology classroom. Chella and Oliver notice something is wrong until they will accompany him. Oliver explains that lost things cannot be easily found in this school, especially when a fairy could there be one who took it. They tell the rest to head back to their room and start pushing Pete. Guy realizes something is wrong, and Katie mentions the rumors that their school sits on top of a giant labyrinth, and that labyrinth starts to mix up with the school halls during the night. Pete manages to find his lost book, and they feel relieved that it was fast. They tried to rush back to their rooms, but they signed a wall after opening the door. The labyrinth starts getting active and changes the structure of the hall to a dungeon. Pete is worried, but Oliver reassures him, explaining that new students get lost all the time. Plus, there are instructors and upperclassmen patrolling the school. Suddenly, they see a fog in front of them, followed by a female voice. Pete starts running towards the female thinking he's safe, but Oliver tells him to wait and return. Oliver steps in front of Pete, and the girl reveals her name to be Ophelia Salvadorian, a fourth-year student. A student moving like a zombie appears behind her and tries to touch her, but she attacks him with a cursed spell of pain. Oliver reveals that he knows about Ophelia because he read her disturbing research. More fog appears around her, and Pete starts moving forward. Chella stops him, and Oliver reveals that it's a bewitching spell released by her fog. Ophelia tells Oliver to smell it, but he refuses and starts running away with the group. As they rush forward, they find themselves in another dead end. This time there's a wall of bones blocking their way, with another fifth-year student appearing behind it. This gives Ophelia enough time to catch up to them, and she asks if she should punish them. That brings the episode to an end. The story continues with Cyrus and Ophelia slowly surround Oliver and his friends, which makes Pete's heart skip a beat in fear. Oliver realizes that Pete is scared, so he tries to calm him and promises him that everything will be alright. Pete instinctively tries drawing out his weapon, but Oliver stops him once again as he knows the evil students will definitely go on the offense then. Michaela also aggresses, as she also knows. Trying to defend will only give Ophelia a reason to attack them, so she wants to first see how things play out. Ophelia greets Cyrus as if they haven't met in a long time, and Ophelia reveals that Cyrus actually desecrates the corpses he finds. But Cyrus thinks that what Ophelia does to the men she finds attractive is far more disgusting. He even calls Ophelia a succubus, which makes her angry and she threatens to hurt him if he teases her again. Cyrus isn't scared of Ophelia's threats. However, as he reveals that the last time the two fought against each other, he ripped out half of her guts. Ophelia draws her dagger as she thinks he has crossed the line, and they both engage in a fight against each other. Cyrus uses a spell to summon a gigantic skeleton monster, and in reply Ophelia also summons a demon out of her belly button. As Pete begins to wonder what kind of disgusting summoning magic Ophelia is using, Oliver clears up his misunderstanding and explains that this is no magic at all, and that she is actually giving birth to this hideous demon. The hideous demon engages in a fight against Cyrus's skeleton monster, which shakes the entire area. So Oliver realizes that they must quickly run from this place before getting involved themselves. But before they can escape, Cyrus once again blocks their escape path using his bone magic. Thankfully, Nanao now finds them to save the day before it's too late. The fight between Cyrus and Ophelia looks to be coming to an end, as her demon shreds Cyrus's skeleton monster into pieces. But Cyrus instantly reforms the skeleton monster again and commands it to fight against the demon. Nanao cuts the bone wall using her katana and steps forward to protect her friends. She tells them to escape, as she believes that once she joins the battle against the succubus and the summoner, things will not turn out well. Ophelia's demon again destroys Cyrus's skeleton monster. So he admits defeat, and asks Ophelia what seeds she put into her disgusting womb, this time to summon such a hideous monster. Ophelia reveals that Cyrus is no better than her, and he actually used real human corpses to make the skeleton monster. Nanao realizes that there is no reason for her to let these evil people leave, and charges towards the two monsters to kill them first. So Oliver also follows her to help her, but before they can do anything, a mysterious student intervenes, and uses his fire magic to ignite both of the monsters into flames. The mysterious student named Alvin reveals that Ophelia and Cyrus were actually planning to recruit Oliver and the others to their teams using these antics. So Alvin has come to put a stop to them and promises Oliver and his friends that he won't let these two evil students harm them, as he also reveals himself to be the student president of Kimberly Magic Academy. Ophelia tries to make a move to escape, but Alvin's friend Carlos restrains her with her sword. As Carlos brings Ophelia to Alden, Cyrus also surrenders himself. So Alvin tells them that he will give them their punishment once they go back to the depths of the labyrinth. Carlos then lets the two go and explains to Oliver and his friends that Carlos and Ophelia were only trying to recruit them to their teams since they are new students here. Alvin is left impressed that Oliver and his friends managed to avoid being taken away, and explains that like them, many more students have also gotten lost in the labyrinth, but they unfortunately couldn't escape the hold of the evil students. Alvin then shows Oliver and his friends the way out of the labyrinth, and leads them back to their worried friends, Guy and Katie. While everyone is finally feeling relieved that all of them are unscathed, Oliver gets furious. He grabs Nanao by her collar and asks her if she had a death wish, as she recklessly followed them alone to the labyrinth. Moreover, she tried to sacrifice her life by going alone against those two military-level monsters. So that gives Oliver more reason to be mad at Nanao, since he cares for her. Michaela calms Oliver down and tells them both that they should just talk things out. So the group heads to their regular hangout place, the fountain, and waits for Nanao to answer why she tried to throw away her life back then. Nanao explains to them that she has lost her attachment to life long ago and no longer believes that any of this is actually real. Nanao explains that the war she took part in was one of the worst battles she had ever seen. Her country's enemy, the Soma Yoshihisa, led an army of 50,000 men, while her country had only 200 men on their side. Once Nanao waged war, she only remembered killing people one after another mindlessly, until she was left all alone in the middle of the enemy camp. Although she was greatly outnumbered, Nanao remained determined to sacrifice her life just to get the head of the enemy country's leader, Soma Yoshihisa. She jumped off her horse, dodged all the soldiers, and even killed the commander who was directly under Soma. Even after clearing the path, Nanao was left surrounded by Soma's soldiers once again. Soma commended Nanao for being such a formidable opponent at such a young age, so he decided to grant her one last wish before killing her. Nanao took this chance to make a wish to fight Soma's son Yasatsuna, who apparently was the strongest fighter in his country. Soma revealed to her that the commander she just slaughtered was none other than his son. Hearing that, Nanao couldn't believe how the strongest person could be so weak. While she was left dismayed, Soma decided to take revenge for his son and promised to give Nanao a quick death rather than torturing her. Since she is a strong warrior, he called all of his soldiers to kill Nanao, and everyone rushed at her at once. Nanao closed her eyes as if she were accepting her death, but the soldier's spears never reached her skin because of a magical barrier. And a wizard above her, riding a broom, revealed himself to be the one saving her. The wizard revealed himself to be Western just like every other student of Kimberly Academy, and explained that he only saved Nanao because he thought it would be a waste to let her die since she is a child with immense potential. This young enemy Dumbledore then came close to Nanao to invite her to come to his country so that she could become a mage. Nanao gladly accepted the wizard's invitation and ended up here at the Kimberly Academy. Nanao ends her backstory and tells everyone that everything since then has felt like a single long dream to her, and she only wanted to die to make her wish come true before her dream came to an end. Oliver asks her what wish she is talking about, and Nanao tells him that joy could only be found in a blade wielded out of mutual love, and that there is no joy in a blade wielded for revenge. According to Nanao, engaging in a fair fight between opponents who respect and accept one another with no enmity between them is called happiness, as that is what she was taught in her country's school. Nanao explains that when she fought Oliver in the first class, she felt that happiness and wanted her life to end right then. That is why when the teacher broke the fight, she approached Oliver right after to go all out against each other. But Oliver rejected her wish back then as he didn't want to hurt his love interests. Nanao also knows that Oliver doesn't have any reason to fight to the death, but she expresses that he didn't have to push her away. Because of that, as she feels hurt and gets in tears. So to sum it up, because Oliver hurt Nanao's feelings, she stopped caring about everything and wanted to die. Nanao even straightforwardly tells Oliver that she has either fallen in love with him or his blade, which to her is the same. Michaela acts as if she understands where Nanao was coming from, a warrior trying to get killed by their loved one. But still, Michaela can't let that happen, as Nanao is not a warrior anymore, but a mage. Michaela tells Nanao to just be happy with a non-lethal duel against Oliver, but she expresses that she won't be satisfied unless she gets the real thing. So Michaela realizes that Nanao needs to change her perspective and find a new way to live. She holds Nanao's hand and tells her not to look for a way to die anymore. Does Kimberly has too many of those already? Michaela assures Nanao that this is not a dream, and she should spend her precious time with the person she just confessed to being in love with, and more than anything. Michaela makes Nanao understand that she has her friends here who also want to spend their time with her. As Nanao finally begins to understand how precious her life is, Oliver asks her to promise him that she won't ever try to get herself killed, no matter what happens. Nanao swears to Oliver that she will never try to take her life away again, and apologizes to him for making him worry for her. She asks everyone to teach her how to live her new life here as a mage, and explains that she didn't understand any of the classes until now. Even though Nanao is not the brightest student, she can become better as she has friends who are ready to help her. They reconcile with each other and end their day in happiness. The next morning at the Kimberly Academy, Nanao excitedly runs towards Oliver and the others who have been waiting for her before greeting her friends. Nanao again apologizes to everyone for worrying them yesterday, and promises to become a better person. She expresses that she is now eager to learn the ways of magic, so the group starts heading to class. Nanao comes close to Oliver to walk together as she wants to see his face up close. Oliver gets uncomfortable and asks her why she is doing this, so she explains that she is only looking at the person she is in love with. Oliver blushes and tries to move away, so Nanao asks him if she made him upset. Oliver explains that it's not like that and he is just feeling shy. So Nanao comes close to him again and gets touchy-feely with him. The group then heads to sword arts class, where Leonard explains to the students the 6 invisible sword techniques known as the spell blades techniques. The students begin to practice their swordsmanship when the annoying side character decides to make an entry to annoy Oliver. Oliver decides to end this by deliberately losing a duel against the egoistic fool to make him look good. But Nanao senses that Oliver wants to lose, but she doesn't want to be the girlfriend of a loser, so she tells him to fight with all he has. Oliver takes her words seriously, but before they can start, Leonard stops them right away. Later, Michaela tells Oliver that she and Richard grew up together and were constantly compared to each other, and she thinks that it's her fault that he has turned out to be like this. Pete comes there and informs both of them that Katie has run off to save the troll that attacked her in the opening ceremony. Speaking of Katie, she is in the middle of trying to convince the teacher not to kill the troll, but the teacher, Darius, thinks that she is getting out of line and literally uses Crucio on her. Her friends arrive there to save her. So Darius thinks they should get the same punishment, but the senior student named Milligan comes to their rescue and stops Darius from doing anything stupid. Professor Leonard also comes there to object to killing the troll. as the headmistress agreed to that as well. So Darius walks away from there and Katie finally gets happy as she saves another life, yet another day. That brings the episode to an end. Things continue. Katie is trying to become friends with the troll. Vera explains that most trolls in their school are used to being around people, but this one is avoiding them since the last incident. Katie tries to give it food, explaining she isn't its enemy. She even eats the food to prove that isn't poisoned. Of course, every student around mocks her for that. The group return to the classroom, where they listen to the other guys talking about Katie. They initially insult the troll, calling it slow and brood, but they then start also insulting Katie. They even say that Katie doesn't take a shower. Guy clearly becomes annoyed and decides to shut those kids up, but Oliver holds his arm and tells him to ignore them. He doesn't want to get involved, but that trio is asking for a beating. The trio continues insulting Katie, mentioning how she was trying to imitate the troll to gain its friendship. Guy's temper is getting worse, but the group tries to stay calm. Katie comes rushing into the class, relieved to arrive in time, but the trio starts bullying her and tells her to impersonate a troll. She's confused, but the girl asks if she became a troll and forgot how to speak. Their behavior gets worse by claiming that their classroom is for humans and if they need to return her to her cage, Guy cannot take it anymore and wants to do something. But Oliver casts an explosive spell on the trio and asks if Guy also wants to join, and is expected Nanao also joins them. Turns out Oliver finishes everything with a massive spell and they all get detention. Just for the record, they are all crazy. Guy is bragging that he dealt with 5 people and Nanao sent 10 people flying. We don't know what did happen, but it seems to be crazy. Michaela was expecting the two to be crazy, but she didn't. Oliver would start everything. He apologizes, yet Katie comes to him saying that it was her fault. She believes that happened because she couldn't speak for herself. Oliver her comforts, her saying she isn't responsible for it. It all happened because he couldn't control his emotions. Meanwhile, Guy still lacks a brain and is happy with the end result, mentioning Oliver snapped at the right time. Katie ends up smiling and thank them for protecting her. Michaela agrees with what they've done, but she's worried about the overall situation from now on. Most of the first-year students will be against them and Mr. Annoying will take advantage of that during the duel against Oliver and Nanao. She thinks the duel won't be fair. After being released, the group heads out to the duel grounds to face Mr. Annoying. Before getting in, they must use a spell to sharpen their swords. Oliver tells them to attack if they ever feel in danger. They step inside a magic painting and end up walking for quite some time. Michaela is worried because if Mr. Annoying simply wanted to duel, he could do it in any place of the school labyrinth. Pete is worried about being ambushed, but Oliver explains Mr. Annoying won't do it because he comes from a famous family. They finally reach the door leading to the duel grounds. After getting past the door, they find themselves in a coliseum with tons of students watching them from above. Nanao and Oliver are ordered to stand in the middle, while the rest can watch from the stands. Oliver tells Michaela to protect the rest because he's afraid something might happen. The group wishes them luck before heading up. The two then steps into the middle when they're told that they will first watch an exhibition battle. Mr. Annoying comes in thinking he's the Chad on campus. He will do the exhibition battle against 3 cobbles at the same time. He focuses on the first monster and uses a spell to cut its limbs. He turns to the second and strikes at cutting limbs and head. Nanao is confused and asks Oliver what's going on. He explains this is a cobble hunt, a traditional hunting game played by mages. They're pretty rare nowadays because people like Katie are opposed to it. But as you guess, they're taking advantage of what last incident. Mr. Annoying tries to play cool, asking if they need an explanation for this game, but Oliver wants to know what this guy thinking is. He invited them to a duel and he wants to play real-life Soul. The guy is annoying as hell and tells Oliver to know his place. Apparently he won't get any honor by defeating him in a normal duel because we know he's too weak, but the guy still thinks he's the last cookie of the packet. That's why he wanted a 2-on-1 to get beaten twice. I mean because he wants to make it fair. They will take turns hunting cobbles and the side that kills the most is the winner. Oliver finds it ridiculous because he knows this is Mr. Annoying most playing game. After playing with Barbie, plus, Nanao didn't even know cobbles existed before. Oliver thinks he can repair their relationship if they let Mr. Annoying win. But I know what you want to ask. Where's the third cobbled while trying to return to its cage? Of course, the guy supervising everything attacks the poor animal. This is planned because of Katie, who starts tearing up after witnessing this cruelty. The supervisor continues abusing Kabul, who tries to run away, but another guy attacks it with an explosion. While heavily injured, the Kabul tries to bite this guy's foot, but the guy avoids it and steps on its head. All the students watching start mocking the situation, making Nanao angry. She shouts that's enough. Silencing, the whole Coliseum laughs. She doesn't understand what's so funny about the situation. She wants to know why they want to force someone who doesn't want to fight. Plus she doesn't understand why they have to compete to see how many they can hurt and kill, and the worst, everyone is laughing from a safe place because they don't have the courage to fight. Basically, she tells, they're all adopted. Literally turns out the students lack any intellect because they throw some bottles at Nanao. One of the bottles even hit her head, but she simply ignores all the target practice and insults toward her. She tells Oliver to go back because this battle isn't worthy of their blades. Of course Mr. Annoying doesn't want it. After all, he planned everything. Some other students try to stop Nanao from leaving and tell her to get back. They order her to shut up or she will get beaten. I swear these kids need to improve their jokes. Of course, Nanao is more interested in the beating them up part. Meanwhile, there are two students freeing the Kabuls into the battlefield. The guy freeing them up tries to threaten the monster, but this one seems different. 1 second later, that same guy is sent flying while heavily injured. The supervisors get defeated by this monster, who turns out to be a Garuda. Oliver asks if this is Mr.'s annoying idea, but turns out Mr. Wannabe Chad is wetting his pants. Literally, the bully's supervisor has become a punching bag. The cool students start to run while crying like little babies. But the best part is Kabuls appear and kill some students. The Garuda is having the time of its life, beating the hell out of the students. But Oliver is worried because the Garuda is a divine beast familiar and they haven't reached the level where they can defeat it. Suddenly words appear above the monster, asking them to understand how it feels to be the prey. The students cannot leave the place because somehow the doors are locked and the Garuda finishes having fun and turns to Mr. Annoying. Let's be fair, I love his face right now. Oliver warns him that if he panics, he will be the first one being hunted. The guy chickens out, pun intended, and the Garuda chases him when he's about to find out what came first, the chicken or the egg. Nanao comes forward and blocks the Garuda with her sword. The inner psychopath inside her is awakened and she now wants to get chicken soup. Okay, I will stop it. The monster steps back and they prepare to face each other. Nanao's hair turns white and she rushes forward. She manages to deflect the first attack, but the Garuda is quicker and tries to strike her. She blocks and tries to land some attacks. Meanwhile, Guy and Michaela are still on the stands dealing with some Kabuls, and Guy says they need to help them. Michaela becomes savage and tells him that he will hold Nanao down. Katie still wants to help, but Michaela casts a spell toward her, stunning a Kabul behind them. She mentions the promise to protect them that she made to Oliver and tells them to fight the Cabals back and believe in their friends. Nanao is still exchanging several blows with the monster until the Garuda decides to fly up. The monster then charges some spell to increase its speed and dashes into Nanao. She cannot dodge it, so Oliver saves her by using his spell to push her away. The Garuda turns its attention to Oliver, who combines his earth spells to propel himself into the monster. He dodges the Garuda's attack and almost cuts its leg. The monster dodges in and manages to injure Oliver. The Garuda then tries to finish him, but he blocks. Oliver gets up and steps back for a second to heal his injuries. Mr. Annoying was hiding and asks how Oliver can fight. He asks if he and Nanao aren't scared, and Oliver replies that they are. Well, not Nanao because she's having the time of her life as a warrior, but that's what makes Oliver want to help her. He wants to teach her how to have a proper normal life. After finishing the healing spell, Oliver heads back to the arena, revealing that Nanao wanted to see how Mr. Annoying fights. Oliver notices Nanao having a hard time dealing with the monster and casts a fire spell. He then tells her that they cannot keep going and they must finish fast. His plan is simple, he will make an opening and Nanao will slay the beast. The two start running into separate sides and Nanao confronts the Garuda again. The monster flies up to avoid her blade and starts casting the same spell as before. Oliver uses this chance to cast a lightning spell, knocking the monster down. Nanao prepares her attack, but the Garuda manages to recover. The monster uses the spell and dashes into her, but Oliver steps in front of it, willing to sacrifice his body to protect her. When the monster is about to hit Oliver, Mr. Annoying finally gets some balls and casts a spell to push it back. Nanao dashes forward and manages to cut the monster's head off. In the end, several students got injured. I hope they never recover, and Oliver thanks Mr. Annoying for his help. Nanao also comes, mentioning his spell was incredible and thanking him for saving them. The guy still has his cocky personality, but he's still shaking. Oliver comforts him, and the guy reveals that he's scared of losing and being told that he's an embarrassment to his family. He asks how they can fight a more powerful enemy without hesitation. Nanao gives the typical samurai answer, and Oliver reveals he's the opposite of her. He then mentions that Mr. Andrews is annoying, yes, that's his name, showed up to fight while most students ran away, and for that he will always remember the courage and honor of Mr. Not So Chad Annoying. They help him get up, and Nanao ends up calling Comrade in arms. Of course he cries like a baby. The rest of the group comes to check on Oliver and Nanao, and Michaela tells Andrews that it's been a while since she last saw him being amazing. That brings the episode to an end.